Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith tells a semi-autobiographical story of a bright, optimistic girl, Francie Nolan, who dreams of more than what her Brooklyn neighborhood has in store. The Buildings Roman is set in the early 19th century Brooklyn. As we experience Francie's coming of age, we also encounter her financial and personal struggles, aspirations, and greatest fears. Francie's family consists of mother Katie, father Johnny, and siblings Neely and Annie Laurie. Katie is a hard-working woman with good intentions, although has a tendency to be brutally honest, especially to the people she loves the most. She is a primary financial supporter in the Nolan household, which is uncommon for the time period, but she has little choice due to her husband's irresponsible nature. Johnny can be seen as Katie's spoil in certain aspects, and contrary to the famed saying that states that opposites attract, their differences seem to be furthering them. Johnny is described as a charming dreamer who has flaws of his own beneath his pristine appearance. He struggles with alcoholism, which leads to his tragic death, especially in the eyes of Francie, who idolized him regardless of his imperfections. Neely is Francie's younger brother. He is much like Johnny in looks and mannerisms, however, Katie vowed since the day he was born that he would be a new and improved version of his father. Francie and Neely spend most of their time together. Annie Laurie is Francie's younger sister who was born just after Johnny dies. Her name is a tribute to him as he used to sing a song of the same name. The story revolves around Francie and her day-to-day experiences. It begins in 1912 when she is 11 years old. Francie and her family are poor and live in a cement tenement in Brooklyn, where a tree known as the Tree of Heaven grows. This is seen as bizarre but a miracle because despite its urban environment, it continues to flourish. This tree is representative of Francie and her growth through her challenging life. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is split into 5 books. The first book illustrates a typical Saturday in Francie's life. It takes us through her regular activities that include collecting spare metal with her brother to earn pennies to help support her family. In this book, we are introduced to the family's struggles. Book 2 is a flashback to the lives of Francie's parents, Katie and Johnny. It explains how they met and their young marriage before children. Book 3 revolves around the children's school lives. Francie has a hard time at school from both the teachers and her peers, primarily due to her financial status. After a few months, she changes schools and has better luck. Francie is very fond of school, specifically English class. She is a talented writer and her teachers praise her for it. One day, while walking home from school, she is nearly abducted and attacked by a rapist murderer. Thankfully, Katie was there to save her, and the criminal was taken to jail. As Francie becomes a teenager, she is now aware of the destructiveness of her father's actions. When Francie was 14 years old, Johnny dies at the age of 34 due to an acute case of pneumonia and alcoholism. Soon after, Katie has a baby girl without her husband by her side. His death impacted not only the family's emotional states but their financial one too. In the fourth book, Francie is forced to quit school to work in order to support her family, because now Katie has a baby to care for. Through her help, the Nolan family is more stable now than ever. Because she was bringing in money, her mother decided that Francie would continue to work while her younger brother Neely would attend high school. Francie is upset about this decision because she was a child who was truly determined and impassioned to continue her education. She never did get to attend high school, although she attended summer college courses where she fell in love with an older student named Ben. After she returned to working in Brooklyn in the fall, she met Lee, another love interest. Her relationship ends with Ben after the courses end, and when Lee returns to his hometown the following week, he marries just after confessing his love to Francie. As Francie finds new love, so does her mother, Katie, who remarries a retired policeman and aspiring politician. In the fifth and final book, Francie prepares to attend college in Wisconsin. Before entering the new chapter of her life, she says her final goodbyes to both her childhood and her beloved Brooklyn. In the novel, there is a detailed flashback of the elaborate family history. Through this, we find out how Katie and Johnny met, their lives before the children, and overall, a further look at their characterization. Included is a description of both Katie and Johnny's upbringings and family traits. The Romley women are strong and determined, the Nolan men are unrealistic and unstable. The film does not include this crucial piece of the story, which leads to holes in the plot and an unclear understanding of the two main characters. In this flashback, the theme of the importance of education is presented. Mary Romley, the mother of Katie and grandmother of Francie, has embedded a standard of reading one page of the Bible and one page of Shakespeare on a nightly basis. Doing so, she believed, would dig them out of their current impoverished state. She hoped that each new generation would become increasingly knowledgeable so their children would live a better life than they had. which was what Katie had tried her hardest to achieve and what Francie was determined to accomplish in the future. Being surrounded by this view of education from strong women heavily influenced Francie in her goals. She had developed a passion for reading and writing and would spend a good deal of her time in the local library. Here she met the librarian, who in the book speaks very little, and in the odd chance she does, it is in a monotone, rehearsed, and careless manner. In the movie, the librarian acts in the exact opposite fashion by responding politely to Francie and her requests. This seemingly insignificant difference between the two mediums completely altered the importance of the librarian's actions and personality. The coldness portrayed in this character in the novel is representative of the harshness of Brooklyn that Francie must face in her life. She is at the library to extend her comprehension, which will lead her to greater things. However, she is faced with the burden of the librarian who refuses to answer her questions and gives her the same book recommendation every day, which does not allow her to expand her knowledge. This does not stop Francie from overcoming this obstacle and growing in unison with the tree. In the film, there's an overall lack of emphasis on the theme of the importance of education, one of the novel's major themes. In one instance from the movie, Neely was reading Shakespeare when he asks, "If none of us knows what this means, then what is the point?" To which Katie responds, "Who knows, maybe it'll help you get a job one day." In the book, Katie explains to her adult children that through reading these works, they are gaining precious knowledge that will immensely assist in their successful lives and achieving better ones than those of their past relatives. This idea of bettering oneself through education was present in nearly every chapter of the book. With its limited presence in the movie, there's little explanation as to how Francie developed her determination of absorbing everything in her surroundings and ultimately becoming a writer. As stated previously, Katie and Johnny are two very contrasting characters. In the book, this is directly stated through the narration and the description of their personalities, morals, and values. At one point in the novel, an entire chapter is dedicated to Katie's point of view, where we know exactly her thoughts. In the beginning of the movie, there is a scene that defines both Katie and Johnny's differing traits. In this scene, Flossie, depicted as a young girl in the movie, asks Katie if she noticed anything different about her while wearing her new dress. Katie replies with, "You seem to be feeling better." The little girl leaves with a disappointed look on her face. She later runs into Johnny and asks him the same question. Johnny says, "Why that dress? It must be made out of flower petals, a bird's wing, and a piece of cloud." She smiles in satisfaction and thanks him. This added scene acts on behalf of the absence of the descriptive narration of Katie and Johnny as told in the book. The situation in the movie still effectively displays Johnny's dreamlike outlook and wild imagination in contrast to Katie's straightforward personality. Even with the absence of the lengthy narration, their responses to the simple question perfectly represents their juxtaposing dispositions. In the movie, the character of Katie is portrayed very differently than in the novel. Katie is an emotionally reserved woman even when it comes to her children. Throughout the book, Francie claims that her mother favors her brother over her. This seems like a typical assumption between siblings. However, during Katie's narration, she admits that even though she does feel guilty about it, she has loved Neely more since the day he was born. Due to this, Francie and her mother are distant. However, in the movie, this is not as emphasized. At one point in the film, Katie hugs Francie and says, "I love you," which never occurs in the novel. Katie is never overly affectionate toward anyone, especially Francie. Katie also cries multiple times in the movie, but in the book, this does not occur. Hollywood has a tendency to over-dramatize events in movies to make them more appealing to the audience, although doing so distorts the true character of Katie that was created in the story. In the movie, Katie has an epiphany that does not take place in the book. When Katie and her mother Mary are conversing, Mary says, "You've forgotten to think with your heart. That is a coldness that is growing within you, Katie." This important conversation about Katie losing who she truly is included only in the film. It is a nice touch to the movie because it not only shows the wisdom of Mary Romilly, but also reveals an inner conflict that Katie faces but does not show. Here we receive a deeper insight to both the mother and daughter characters. Another added conversation in the movie is between Johnny and Katie, where she asks, "Have I changed? I do not want to be this way, but I want to do what is best for the kids." Providing this in the movie gives reasoning for Katie's cold behavior. She has good intentions, but feels that to benefit the kids, she must act in this distant manner. This also displays her vulnerability and self-doubt in her
No,
ways.
that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I getting hard? You know.
Oh, now where did you grab onto an idea like that? Hard?
I don't know. I don't want to be, but, well, there's the kids and all, and I want to do what's right for them, and maybe
Now
sometimes
will you
I
stop
am.
talking like that? Why, you...
This is a side of Katie we don't experience in the novel until the birth of Francie's younger sister, Annie Laurie, where she claims she needs Francie by her side. In both the book and movie, during labor, Katie has the realization that she has never paid enough attention to Francie. Katie tells Francie that if the baby is a boy, she will name him Johnny. In the movie, this is much more dramatic. Katie sobs, crying out how she misses Johnny, and then follows with the name suggestion to honor her late husband. Again, this paints an inaccurate picture of Katie, making her come across as a very sentimental and emotional person, whereas she is the exact opposite in the book.
Francie. I miss him so much. The baby's a boy. We'll call him Johnny.
A mother is supposed to be a comfort to her child, and although never blatantly rude to Francie, Katie does not assist her much in obvious ways as we are used to seeing motherly figures do. She's not much help when it comes to a good relationship or being supportive, but Katie is quietly considerate when, for example, she allows the kids to eat first, claiming she's not hungry, to make sure that there's enough food to go around the table before she eats. As a child, Francie is oblivious to her efforts of bettering their lives and sees Johnny rather than Katie as the hero. Now that Johnny has passed, she feels that there is no one who understands her. This furthers Francie's struggles of becoming the best version of herself because she feels she is doing it with little help from others. While Katie is giving birth to Annie Laurie, only in the movie is it pouring rain outside. The heavy rain in the background can be symbolic of the rebirth of Katie and Francie when they realize that they're in this together now that Johnny is truly gone. While Francie attends school, she discovers her passion for writing, which serves as her creative outlet and escape from her demanding life. Francie was given advice from her teachers to write about what she knows, so she writes about her family's financial situation as well as her dad's drinking problems. When her teacher reads the compositions Francie has written about poverty, starvation, and drunkenness, she is disappointed and discards of her old advice. Instead, she advises Francie to write about what is beautiful. Francie quotes that beauty is truth and this was for truth. The teacher lectures Francie on her so-called ugly topics, but in fear of getting in trouble, Francie does not refute. The teacher goes on stating that by truth we mean things like stars always being there and the sun always rising, and the true nobility of man and mother love and the love for one's country. The conversation is full of ignorant comments from the teacher such as hunger is not beautiful, it is also unnecessary. We have well-organized charities. No one need go hungry. This event in the book shows the division of the social classes and the ignorance of the wealthy in Brooklyn at the time. The idea of a poor financial situation is heavily present throughout the entire novel, and without this crucial conversation between Francie and her teacher occurring in the movie, we do not see the true separation among the classes' views and how money or the lack of it can shape a person. A major theme discussed in the book is poverty and how it affects Americans. The book does a great job being very descriptive in the family's day-to-day activities, whether it be Francie eating a potato because there wasn't enough money even for the bruised apples, or Katie working long, hard hours while pregnant because Johnny blows all of his earnings at the bar. The events help to envision the difficult circumstances this family is living under. In the film, it is easy to forget oftentimes that they are poor. There is a Christmas scene in the movie that makes it seem as though they had extra money lying around to buy gifts, when in the book, it describes the gifts as humble while narrating how difficult it was for the family to provide even one small gift. Similarly, when Johnny passed away, Katie and Francie were concerned about the costs of a decent funeral and the loss of income, which also was not evident in the movie. Making their financial struggles in the movie less obvious changes the entire setting of the story and meaning of the work. The theme of poverty is extremely important to not only the characters and their makeup, but to their accomplishments. Without having a large emphasis on the fact that Francie had little money, it does not make her perseverance seem as extraordinary, which leaves out the theme of overcoming obstacles in life. Without clearly showing the financial situation of the Nolan family, we cannot fully appreciate the other themes in the work. As Francie ages in the book, we experience her loss of innocence. The biggest event in Francie's loss of innocence is when one day she's walking home from school and is nearly abducted. Katie shoots the man before he could do any physical harm, but the emotional damage would be with her forever. In the movie, this situation does not occur, but it is a major turning point in Francie's life and is essential to include in order to understand her forced journey from childhood to adulthood. This, along with various other events such as the recklessness of Johnny while drunk, or the pain Katie experienced through childbirth, may have been omitted due to the censorship at the time the movie was filmed. In the 1940s, the rules of what could and could not be on the screen were strict, and for this reason, many events that occurred in the book were not a part of the film version. The novel concludes with Francie finally achieving her dreams of attending college. Her whole life has set her up for this, and the entire book has led to this very moment. The themes of the importance of education and perseverance join to create this happily ever after ending, although this is completely excluded from the film. The novel is centered around Francie's life and her hopes for a better future through receiving higher education, and because the movie ends with Francie still a child, the audience does not see her hard work pay off. Omitting the original ending of the story alters the meaning of the work, which is that any goal one has set can be achieved regardless of the individual's upbringing, background, or obstacles. My final verdict is that the movie was not an accurate representation of the book. Its exclusion of crucial events in Francie's life is the main reason for this decision, as they did not focus on any other part of her life besides childhood. The movie does not live up to the book's extremely detailed telling of the story, and without this, it does not have the same effect. Movies only have so much time to get the point across, however, I believe that Francie's journey is deserving of the more eloquent version of her story, which is through Betty Smith's literary work. Its length, detail, and complexity represents life, and a condensed movie version, in my opinion, does not do it justice.